What's going on, everybody? Welcome back again to the EHUNTR podcast. Really enjoying these podcasts this year. This has been a lot of fun. This whole podcasting thing is a blast. And so I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as I am. Hope you're enjoying the videos as much as I am as well. On the line today, I've got Joe with the Western Bear Foundation. So if you guys haven't been up to speed with what's going on with the bears in the West and how the impacts that might be happening in a few of the states, it's something that you guys ought to be paying attention to. And so we're going to dig into it today and talk through a lot of the details of it, just to hopefully get you guys informed of what's going on, and hopefully we can make some changes. So before we get started, though, as always, want to thank Vortex Optics for everything that they do for us here at EHUNTR. We appreciate them. Check them out at vortexoptics.com. Let's jump into the podcast. Well, Joe, I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me a little bit today. Like I said, I watched your video the other day on Instagram, and I was just like, holy crap, we've got to talk more about this. We've got to get more people listening to this and give people the details. Before we get into that, would you mind telling everybody who you are and what you do with the Western Bear Foundation?
Yeah, so my name's Joe Condilas. I'm essentially the founder and current, I always just say chief volunteer for the foundation. You know, like nonprofit work is not glamorous at times, and I get to kind of be the lead for our nonprofit right now. So it's a great responsibility, and I appreciate it. And it's a lot of work, but yeah, so just kind of working on building us out. We've been around since 2007. But really growing in the last probably 5 or 6 years. It seems like every year, double-digit growth as far as like members go, and
wow,
the amount of projects we do, the amount of projects we get requests for, and work that we could be doing it's crazy. So unfortunately, some of the stuff that we're dealing with in the anti-hunting and hunting space helps us grow, which I would rather it not be that way.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of my role. I do work a full-time job, and then I do this on the side, kind of similar to what you do, work full-time and do a podcast, and so it's definitely a labor of love.
You got to pay the bills. And I definitely know on the nonprofit side, I think I kind of helped Curtis and Monty with a startup that they were doing. And you're right, you're the chief volunteer when it comes to that.
Yeah, everyone wants to volunteer for the glamorous stuff.
Oh yeah,
not the stuff that I need help with.
Exactly.
The stuff that's like, when are you going to go collar bears, or when are you doing this? I'm like, I don't know. You want to do some paperwork?
Yeah. Do you want to file a 501c3 or a 1023 for me? Oh, it's so much work, but you know what though? It's so worth it, and I'm glad there's guys like you out there that are willing to do this, because without it, what we enjoy and love would look very different. So, those people that want to be part of it, whether you want to be part of it in the glamorous side of it or the beginnings, just be a part of it whenever you possibly can, I guess, for lack of better words.
Absolutely. Just being a proactive sportsman is the most important thing. And you don't even have to be involved with groups by spending money, but being a part of their cause or their effort in some way, shape, or form is better than what we were doing yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Every day we can improve and get better and take a step in the right direction. So,
well, and I'm pretty sure most of our followers as well know that you guys have been around for quite a while. We did work together on the delist project as well. So we've worked on stuff together. Actually I should say I've actually never harvested a bear. I hate even saying that out loud.
Oh, wow. We got to change that.
I know. I look at that bear on your wall behind you, and I'm like, gosh, dang it. I'd love to go shoot that thing. But Curtis, he's part of EHUNTR, and he's from Idaho. He's harvested a lot. And so, it's been, bear hunting's been really part of what we do and what we love to do and enjoy. And so we've been trying to support you guys and really bear hunting in general. So you guys have been around. You guys have done a lot of projects. I mean, before we get into this whole what's going on right now, what kind of projects did you guys do last year?
The big one that we are kind of put a lot of effort into was one that we've been trying to get done for a few years, and it was kind of like one that we knew if we could get it done, it would kind of set the standard for us and maybe some other states on black bear research population project. And we started it up in Wyoming. We kind of augmented a small study that was already happening in Wyoming. And it was started out mule deer depredation and predators. And we were able to, they collared a few black bears. I think it was the Wyoming range. And we're trying to figure out if the black bears were killing the mule deer in the Wyoming range on fawn grounds. And when we got some of that collar data back from the bears, and I had already been bugging the Wyoming Game and Fish Department for a long time, like, hey, we need to do a research project. We need to find out how many bears there are, because Wyoming's interesting. It's a quota state still. It's on a female mortality quota. Okay. Not a lot of states in the West do that because of the robust population, but Wyoming's a little different. We have some isolated ranges, I think, mountain ranges, where it doesn't allow for that like mass movement by bears from one range to another. And so it's a little trickier, but because of that, we have some maybe conservative harvests in some areas that we're seeing a lot of growth in bear population. So we have a lot of hunters that complain year over year, and a lot of hunters have a great experience. I'm one of them. But it's come up, can we maybe take some more bears out of the population? Our quotas are filling so fast, it's limiting opportunity. And so just kind of the backstory, I started really pestering them, and we were able to kind of like piggyback onto that study and build it out by buying some more collars and turn it from a mule deer depredation study to a black bear population study. So we started with that in the Bighorns a couple of years ago, and we bought a bunch of collars, GPS collars, and gave them to the department. In the middle of that, the University of Wyoming jumped in and said, hey, we want to do some cool stuff with the data that you guys get. So it turned in from being just like a spatial study on where bears move on a range and maybe trying to figure out how many there are by doing some hair collection sites to now the Game and Fish is giving the data, and we are working in unison with the University of Wyoming. We have two people kind of working closely with that, Emily Holst and Joe Holbrook. He's an assistant professor. They're working on all the data that's collected. They're able to kind of look at harvest vulnerability off of bait sites and some of the, we kind of have a theory that like big bears are really hard to kill on bait sites, and we maybe are harvesting the same age class of bears on bait sites.
That's a good
that
point.
3 to 6 year old bear that are common hitting bait sites and like trying to just see if there's a correlation to the age and if some bears are 100% dependent on bait during a bait season, or and kind of the dependency. So there's a lot of stuff going into this, and we just did another collar project. So that kind of happened in the Bighorns. It's like a 3-year study. So the collars stay on for like a year and a half, a little longer. And then once we get all the data from the collars, we go around and put out little squares of barbed wire around trees in that grid pattern. And we're collecting individual hair samples off of that and turning those into the university. And then, so last year, I think we collected, it was well over 600 individual pieces of hair, not necessarily bear hair, but pieces of hair that are all being processed now. And so we spent a lot of the summer doing that with the Game and Fish Department and the University of Wyoming out on the range collecting hair samples. And we'll do that same thing with the collared bears we have in the Laramie range this summer. Nice. And hopefully we can keep doing that. So that was a big one in Wyoming. Have a lot of interest from other states and provinces about that study. I think it's kind of really unique. And the state of Wyoming hasn't done a large scale black bear population study in quite a few years, late 90s. And it was just in the snowies. So definitely a need for that. We do a lot of conflict mitigation work. So just keeping bears out of trouble, whether it's electric fences or bear-proof garbage cans and bear-proof dumpsters. Our kind of theory is like, if we can keep bears safe and out of trouble, then there's more on the mountain, just kind of like sheep guys, there's more bears out there for hunters and non-hunters to enjoy, and we hate seeing bears get taken out by a Game and Fish or, a management action that a sportsman would be happy to go harvest.
Well, it's like mule deer overpasses, you build those overpasses so you don't see those mule deer killed by cars each week or each year, they're actually harvested by a hunter. Yep. And so there's a lot of that. That's not as glamorous and cool, but it's all super important stuff. And part of that kind of started out because we were doing a lot of trying to figure out how to get the grizzly bear delisted. What part can we play in it? Because so much of that is done at a federal level, and NGOs aren't really involved that much unless it's a lawsuit, and we're not big into suing. First off,
we don't have the money.
I was gonna say it's a lot of work and money.
It's a court of law that shouldn't be dictating wildlife issues. So we kind of were like, how can we play into this? And one of the things we kind of landed on and talking a lot with the state departments was like, we need more help with mitigating conflict and getting rid of conflict on the landscape, whether it's hunter conflict with bears, livestock. That keeps more grizzly bears on the hill and in the population. And when we have that, we can easily come and say, look at what we're doing. This is the amount of bears we have. Now we can delist them. And I think it's a good way to show that we're working as a hunting organization to work at delisting, and not just a group that's out there claiming we want delisting or not delisting and not doing anything about it.
Right. I did see that Wyoming officially petitioned to delist the bears in Yellowstone. Did you see that?
Yep.
That's awesome. I was pretty stoked to see. I feel like we're starting to move in the right direction on some of these things. It takes a lot of your guys' work and a lot of your time and effort, but well, not just you guys. I mean, it's everybody in unison working together. But I feel like that we're starting to make some traction. I think we have an uphill battle, but
it's definitely going to be an uphill battle. It's really funny when you put it in perspective. Like, it feels like that's all we've done in the last few years is fight over this grizzly thing.
And doesn't it? We have so many articles up on that stupid topic.
It's just nonstop. And then you look and it's like since 1975, when they got put on the endangered species list, there have been people since that day working to one common goal. There are people that I know of that spent their entire career. Just think about it, that's crazy. Like my whole career was spent trying to delist the grizzly bear, and it's still not done. And so now, like, I think what these new petitions do is answer the questions that were raised, and the reason that Judge Christensen said his belief why we shouldn't delist and why he asked to be put back on the list. Both the petition from Wyoming for the GYE really answers those questions and says, here we fixed the problem, and now we want the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We want you to delist them. And obviously we will be back in courts if they do say, yeah, you guys are good, let's delist them. But at the same time, Montana petitioned to delist the Northern Continental Divide ecosystem grizzly bear. So I don't know if that's going to hurt or help us. I kind of feel like one of them's going to get nixed because that's a big chunk of the pie to take right away. Yeah. And I hope, I'd love them both to go, but I don't know.
I'm with you. I don't see them both happening. I feel like we're going to have to take a little victory and get one or the other. I did see that as well, and that's kind of what my thought was. I hope that we can at least get one, but I'm not going to hold my breath that we get both.
And I mean, it's frustrating is what I've said for a long time. Like, the grizzly bear thing is so polarizing, whether you're a sportsman or not. Whether you live in the area or not, everyone has an opinion, it seems like, on them.
Yep.
The opinions that are coming from outside of the area are the ones that are actually influencing more than the opinions that are coming from people that live with them.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is you create this public perception of grizzly bears, where grizzly bears live, as being very bad. Like, people don't like them, and they're tired of dealing with the constant issues. I mean, they're an amazing species, amazing animal. I get to see them a lot, and there are days I don't want to see them, and there's times where I'm out maybe bear hunting and I see them and I get frustrated, but I take for granted that I get to go out and I can see some grizzly bears. But on the same token, it affects people's way of life, whether you're an outfitter or a guide, or, there's businesses. And so everyone has an opinion, no matter what space you're in. And I think what's happened is the anti-delist groups don't realize the power of a hunter advocate.
Right.
Like, hunter advocates can recover a population faster than anything.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen it done. Like, and we see it now. Like, there are hunter groups out there that advocate for deer hunting or elk hunting or turkey hunting or whitetail, pheasant. They all have groups and they all have advocates, and those species are all thriving. Like, they have people on the landscape now that are making sure there's always going to be those out there for their future.
Yep.
Grizzly bears don't have that in the hunting community because we're never been allowed to be a part of the equation. And that's what's missing. I think if they would be okay with that and let this go forward, I think they'd be shocked at we're never going to let the grizzly bear, because we want opportunities, right? We want to go hunt them. And maybe I don't get to, but my daughter does, or kids, you know, and so we're going to do everything in our power. That's what's missing. And they just don't understand that. But if we look at history, it shows the results.
Yeah, if they would understand the money that goes into it and the time that goes into it and the impact that hunter advocates groups can make on them. Imagine if we had the Grizzly Bear Foundation. If this was the Western Grizzly Foundation, you know, I mean.
Yeah, it's just, you know, and that was one of our platforms for starting. One of the main things we started this group was like, we are going to be a group that is actively working in the hunting community to delist the grizzly bear.
Yeah.
And I think early on we thought we're going to be filing amicus briefs and doing all this stuff in court. And it just realistically, it just doesn't work. You know, we were naive.
Right.
Thought, as long as there's one hunting group out there that wants to delist a grizzly bear, we can do it. It's a
beast.
Wow. So, I mean, that is a belief of ours. And if we do delist a grizzly bear, we will be advocates for them. And we are for them.
Yeah.
You know, they're a bear. We're a bear foundation. We love them. But we also realize like their management is important and they need to be managed. We're plumb full.
I think that's what anti-delist groups think, is they think that we as hunters want them just wiped off the face of this planet. And that's really not what we want. We want them to thrive so much so that we have that opportunity to hunt them. If they could understand that, I think they'd look at it differently.
We have a lot of people that think both ways for us. Like, they're a hunting or they're a bear foundation. They don't want hunting grizzly bears. And I'm like, you couldn't be any farther from the truth. We want sustainable hunting seasons. Yep. We want a sustainable population too. We're not for the eradication of bears.
No.
Grizzly bears. I mean, we want them out there, and look at the revenue these states could gain. And the state of Wyoming alone has spent over $50 million on the recovery.
Wow.
They only get $100,000 a year about from the federal government. So, I mean, think of that.
That's ridiculous. Wow. Crazy. But you're right. The revenue that could come from having a solid, you know, strong grizzly population that could be hunted, that could grow, that could develop, that could be managed. I mean, gosh, it could be a huge revenue stream.
It is, and it would really give hunters a little more. I guess where I get frustrated is a lot of the people that are against the delisting, and there's a bunch of them in Wyoming, there's a bunch of them in Idaho, there's a bunch in Montana, and they're making money off of the bear. They're these photographers, and it's a small. They're a small group, but they're very, very vocal. And there's one in particular in Wyoming that just, I'm not afraid to say it, just drives me crazy. He's a staunchly against delisting, but he's also making a ton of money off bears like $3.99 and all these. So he feels that if we can hunt bears, then there goes my easy money, because these grizzly bears are like roadside bears.
See, but that he doesn't understand though, because if you were to delist it and let the hunter advocate groups come in, then he's actually in the long run going to have more bear. I guess maybe they're not standing on the side of the road. Okay, he might have to hike a little bit to go see a bear.
Yeah, but
there's going to be more bears for him to take pictures of and make money off of. So in the grand scheme of things, it actually would work better for him if he could see that.
I agree, and I just think it's funny. Like there's people out there that are actually profiting off of them, you know, and us as hunters that are paying the bill for the recovery, we get nothing. So it's just been an interesting thing, and it just speaks to the frustration of a lot of people. And there's a simple answer to that, really. But you know, the frustrating thing is we can only do so much before it becomes an issue with the courts. And we really need to change that, I think, you know, and I don't know that it'll ever happen.
And I don't know how to make that happen, but I agree with you. It does need to change.
There's the equal access to justice deal. And that basically gives some of these groups that sue the federal government, if they win the case, they get a bunch of money back for legal fees. So that's there was, and I don't have the numbers, but there was one of the groups that sued to stop the delisting, and out of Missoula in the district court there received a huge chunk of change for this. So they probably have lawyers that work pro bono on the case, and then they get them a lot of money. And so that has to go away. Yep. That would filter out a ton of these court issues, I think, if that could go away. And then I think federally we need to have something done with the endangered species list. That's a lot of work, but that's what has to happen.
That's a great point. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I agree wholeheartedly with that. That whole endangered species list in general needs to really be relooked at and updated, I guess is the right word for it, because there's so many things that need to change with the way that whole list works and how it's set up right now.
Yeah, and it's funny because like its intent is good. We look at this grizzly bear thing and we forget it's probably one of the greatest success stories in modern times of population recovery. We're looking at maybe 100 bears in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem in 1975, give or take, to we're well over 1,000 on conservative estimates. It took a long time, but now we have bears moving now. Now the anti-hunters they will not, this is not part of their science, but there's actually collars on bears that prove this is happening. Now bears are reaching so far north out of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem and as far south as out of the Northern Continental Divide, that there will be interbreeding. Yeah. The DNA transfer is going to happen. So we're looking at like, this is a crazy success story. Like, let's celebrate it. The plan worked. It was never intended for them to stay on there forever. And if you just look at it by black and white like that, the numbers match. They met the recovery criteria since like 2013. Everything's been met.
That's amazing.
And just in that in itself should be done.
It really should. That is huge. And by the way, I'm sitting here taking notes, so I'm not ignoring you, by the way.
You're good.
I kind of geek out on this kind of stuff. I really, that's one of my favorite parts about this podcast is being able to learn these kind of things.
Absolutely.
And so I'm over here taking notes. So I'm not ignoring you as I'm doing this, but I mean, I wrote huge success. I mean, that is a huge success to go from 100 bears to over 1,000 bears, like you said, and we even put that in an article that we put on our website that was very conservative numbers at 1,000.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Amazing numbers to be able to do that. But the thing is, and think people got to realize, whether you're a delister or anti-delisters, it doesn't end now. Even if they delist, we've got to manage those 1,000 bears. We got to manage them for diseases. We've got to manage them for numbers. We've got to manage them for other, ungulates and other wildlife in the area. So, I mean, this is still a process that we're still working through, and wherever this goes.
That it's never going to end. And what's kind of nice about what the states have done a great job of building out a management plan for that includes hunting. I won't say for hunting. The management plan includes hunting, which was such a big focus of the kind of anti-hunting, anti-delist spaces. They just went to hunting. Like, they're going to kill them all. Well, that was just a piece of the management tool. The states have to have a management plan. That's the law.
Yeah.
And so as part of that, we can hunt just like every other species. We have management plans in every state. And so part of that, but it was so conservative, the hunt and the guardrails that were in place for the management plan and through, the petition that they put there. So in the tri-state MOA, which basically dictates how Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming are going to manage discretionary mortality, which is leftover mortality after you count road killed bears, management actions. And so say there's 10 left, they could say, well, our population estimate is here. We can take these 10 bears and split them out between the states and harvest 10 bears by hunters. We're killing 40 plus a year, just management actions.
Right.
And so it's like the guardrails were there, but no one could get past that. They just looked at hunting. And so now I look at everything and I'm like, same kind of, but it seems like the focus is a little bit less about the hunting and more about, now this could change if the petition gets accepted and then this will be their fuel. But,
right.
We have to manage the species for health, right? And so right now we just manage for basically problem bears. Everything else can live and survive and we don't care. And they can flood the ecosystem and they can make the bucket so full where they live that they're spilling out into areas they've not been since pre-European settlers. The big thing that I always hear is, well, they only are in 2% of their native range. Okay, well, are we going to uproot entire societies so the grizzly bear can inhabit another 4% of its range. We're never going to see that. We live here now.
Right.
So we have to manage our expectations on that. And then, you know what, I heard a really cool thing. It was not that long ago. It was one of the, it might've been one of the biologists in Wyoming said, you know, they're starting to you'll see reproductive rates fall off as more and more bears live in one ecosystem. They start managing their own reproduction. It's nature, right? So if you got so many bears in one area, there's only so much food, there's only so much space. So eventually female reproductive rates drop, and grizzly bears have a very low reproductive rate as it is. So at this point in time, are we just managing for a number that will never grow because they're like checking themselves?
Yeah. Hey, where do you live? Just sorry, I'm just processing everything that you're talking about. Where do you live?
I live in Cody, Wyoming.
Cody, Wyoming. Okay.
So just east of Yellowstone Park, on the east entrance on the Rocky Mountain front, in the heart of a lot of grizzly bear stuff. So.
Yeah. You're kind of right in the mix of it all, aren't you? Right there.
Yeah.
Man, that's just crazy. Sorry, I'm just processing. Like, and I apologize. I'm probably gonna be, like I said, I have never been a huge bear hunter. So, I've been involved with bears. So okay. I'm gonna be a huge sponge during this podcast because I'm just trying to learn as we go through this. Man, so many questions I have, and I know we need to get to what's going on right now and whatnot. But I appreciate you sharing this information, because I think people are going to look at this podcast and be like, okay, I do want this information as well, and I got to take advantage of what I have.
Yeah, sometimes, so I can go on a tangents left and right, but I love to talk about this stuff, so you can shut me up whenever. No,
I think that's good, because well, just like that, what we're talking about, I think people need to know that, because I don't think people think about those kind of things, and I don't know why it is. Bears seem to be like this characterized type of a species, and so I think people they put blinders on when they're thinking about bears. Like, I don't think they think about how they live with us, how we encroach upon them. Just about going back to what you were just barely talking about, how we encroach upon them, and how we're, you're not going to change what we're doing as humans, or where we're at, or what we've done. I mean, I guess you can a little bit to a point, but like you said, you can't go back and give them 4% back of what we've taken. That's just impossible. So how do we manage it now? It is unrealistic. So I think it's just figuring out what do we do now, and looking past how people look at bears in general.
It's a tough nut to crack, because we've been, even as kids, every kid has had a teddy bear, and then you move on from a teddy bear to cartoons, and then you got all these shows. And so I never had an elk stuffed animal when I was a kid,
That would have been cool, though. I would have liked that.
It would have been, yeah. Come on. It's the way society is. And anything that is toothy and furry seems to be, like, all predators seem to be like extra special, loved by everyone that doesn't hunt. Now, I love predator. I would rather predator hunt than anything. It's like, I love all predators. Like, people hate coyotes. I love the opportunity to go coyote hunting, and they're just such a cool animal to me. And like, bears are my favorite animal. Yeah. I hunt them. I learn a lot about them while I'm hunting them, and still to this day, and that's why I've always loved them. But what's happened in the world with bears and mountain lions and wolves and bobcat, anything, it's just with
teeth and fur.
Teeth and fur critters are the perception of them is they're lovey, cuddly things, and we shouldn't hurt them.
Yeah.
But they're a piece that needs to be managed, just like everything else. Management is important. And if we're going to live on the landscape with them, then it's partly our responsibility to ensure a future for them. And if we don't manage the species, then shame on humans.
When you brought up a really good point, like you said, that you hunt bears. I think to be able to truly understand a species, whether it's bears, whether it's elk, mule deer, pronghorn, whatever it is, I think you get an understanding of those species by hunting them that you won't get in any other way. And so, again, going back to kind of what we were just barely talking about, I think that people need to start leaning on hunters for the data, for the information, to be able to utilize. Absolutely. How do we manage these things going forward by utilizing the data from hunters.
You hit it right on the head. You will never find the most, probably, you want to find a guy that knows more about mountain lions than anyone. You go find a houndsman.
Go find a houndsman. Yep.
He will tell you more than a biologist could.
Yep.
Most bear hunters can tell you. Now, there's a couple of bear biologists I know that every time I talk to them, like, I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You know, like, but as far as like habitats and movements and day-to-day stuff, you know, like to really understand the species and to learn, like hunters know more, because to become good at your craft or your hobby or your passion, you have to really put in a lot of time and learn. That's what the barrier to entry is for bear hunters, I think, because it's a little easier to learn about a herd animal like a deer or an elk, and you see lots, and you can see lots because they're in groups a lot of times.
Yeah.
Bears are solitary animals, and not a lot of people grew up trying to understand bears. But ungulates are a big, you know, I guess I wouldn't say ungulates, like hoofed animals that we hunt. Like, I guess for deer and elk, like if you're hunting mountain mule deer and elk, you know, it's a lot the same. Where do you look? Where there's food, and you need to have some seclusion, some cover. And it's like, but bears live in so much different habitat. And so people are just like, I don't know about bears.
Yeah.
I never see bears. And so it's really screws people up when they're like, well, I don't know even where to look, you know? And I think that's been the barrier to entry, is not understanding them. It's one thing I always tell people like that want to get into bear hunting. I'm like, learn about bears before you do anything. I didn't have that knowledge. And I was like, read books about bears, understand what bears do, what they like. Because most people that go out and just try and figure it out don't have a clue what they're after.
Yeah. You don't know where to find them. You don't know what you're shooting. That's the thing is, you know, and I've kind of learned this, is I really do want to get into bear hunting. I'd love to get really hard and heavy into bear hunting because I love the animal. I love the species. But even, you know, with a deer or an elk, it's pretty easy to tell which one's a boy or which one's a girl, you know.
Yeah.
With a bear, it's probably easy for you, but for most people that are out there, it's tough. I mean, you look at their ears, you look at their size, you look at the shape, but even at that, I mean, I saw a sow that I would have swore was a boar.
I've looked at so many dang bears, and every year there's one I'm just like, I shot one a couple of years ago. I swore up and down and would have bet money on it was a boar, and it was a sow, you know. And it's just, I kind of know all the tips and tricks, and it's hard, and people don't understand that. And that's one thing. Like when I just started bear hunting, I just thought you hunted them like elk, like get on a ridge or a trail and hike and do your thing and you'll find them. And I was like, man, we don't see any bears doing this.
Yeah.
And it was just a long process of like probably 4 or 5 years of trying to kill a bear before I eventually took one with my rifle. And I was just like, wow. I fell in love with it after that. I was like, no thing has been harder for me to get. And everyone's got a different story. Some people probably go out the first time and get them, but I just wasn't that wasn't me. But I think it was fate, you know, it like led me into this passion for the species and that's where I'm here now, you know? So it's a really cool story. But
is that bear behind you a boar or a sow?
That was a boar, that one there.
See, looking at the snout, he's kind of got a little bit of well, I guess he's on the wall, and I'm looking at a zoom screen right here.
Unfortunately, I like my rugs to have the ears forward, and he put the ears kind of pinned back on this one, and it really doesn't make his head look as big as it is. But yeah, that was about like a 7 or 8 year old boar I killed in the Bighorns.
Wow. I love his color. His color is beautiful. I mean, just
that was what got me. I'm a nut for color bears, man.
Yeah. I started looking at that as I've only really looked at bear hunting for like the last 2 years. I was in Colorado. I lived in Colorado, and I ended up getting a tag for bear there and hunted it. Like I hunted it the way I hunt elk. By the way, I didn't get a bear, so that kind of proves your point. But I started looking at all the different color phases of bears, and you know the brown ones and the blonde ones and cinema. I mean, there are some gorgeous looking bears out there. I'd love to have some rugs of those things.
Colorado, I wish we had a spring season there. Unfortunately, they did that legislatively, so I don't know if we'll ever see that change. But
I don't think you ever will.
There is some tremendous bears in Colorado. It is a secret because you can only hunt it in the fall, so opportunity is low. You got a lot of private and some of that stuff where they have special tags, right? Like private land only ones, and then they have over the counter. But it seems like everyone goes to Colorado elk hunting, but it's like, man, there's so many bears down there.
There are, the problem that I found when I was bear hunting is because it is a fall season, and so you have the bear hunt, the elk hunt, the deer hunt, the pronghorn hunt, all of these hunts going on at the same time. I felt like that was the hardest part of my hunt, was trying to get away from the elk hunters and the deer hunters to try and find a bear. Like it's tough.
I think that's a challenge. There's so many people on the landscape at once. And that's the nice thing about a spring season is the people out hunting. You got some shed hunters out there, but most of the time in the spring, it's just, you're out there. The only people out there are bear hunters.
Yeah.
There ain't many of us, you know? So it's like, probably most of the bears killed in Colorado are not, they're incidental, I imagine. A guy's got a bear tag in his pocket, he's elk hunting, and oh, look at that,
Yep. That's I would say that's how, and I don't know these numbers off the top of my head, but I would say that's the majority of bears killed in Colorado. Because every time I had an elk tag, I would get a bear tag and have it in my pocket, just because if I saw one, that elk hunt's going to turn into a bear hunt real quick. And so I had that there, but I never saw one. I never saw one.
It's crossed my mind so much to buy a Colorado bear tag and just go down and not deer. I don't care. I just want to go down and bear hunt. But I'm like, the one deterrent I've had is I was like, there's so many elk tags in that state and so many people out hunting. Like, I just don't know how that would be. And I'm sure you can find it, but it'd just be different,
It's rough. It really is rough. Because I was only hunting bear. I think it was 2 years ago. I was down by Pagosa Springs, and it was really tough. I ran into elk hunters every ridge I walked on. There were 2 or 3 elk hunters sitting on it, and with that many people out on the landscape, the bears are going to be pretty well hidden. They're not going to really come out, and so it was really tough. It was frustrating.
Of it, if you sit on the city limits of Durango, you could probably have a field day. I mean, that town is like being overrun with bears. It sounds like you could just hang out down there somewhere and do fine.
I said that about my house, and I lived in Monument, Colorado, which is just north of Colorado Springs. And I said that all the time. I'm like, gosh, if I could just hunt in my backyard, I'd be good. I see them all the time out there. Oh, shoot. One of these days, Joe, we're going to have to maybe do a podcast on just bear hunting, since you have such.
I'd love to.
That'd be fun, just to help people understand.
Yeah,
how to bear hunt,
like a little tips and tricks thing. That'd be great.
Because I really
wanted to do one where I actually took someone like you out, and we were doing a remote podcast, like looking for bears.
You tell me when and where, and I will be there, brother. You just tell me where to be.
Anytime, buddy. That'd be a cool little podcast.
Hell yeah, that'd be a lot of fun, man. I'm being serious. We need to do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Just reach out, man, this spring.
Okay. Yeah, because there's so many questions I want to ask you about Wyoming and getting tags, but we'll save that for a different podcast. Excuse me. Let's get to what this podcast is about, which we're a little ways into this and finally getting. No, I think this is fantastic. I hope that everybody's really enjoying the information that's coming across here, because all of this stuff is very important. Whether you're a bear hunter or whether you're a hoofed animal hunter, this impacts everybody. So I hope everybody understands that. Joe, the other day you posted a video on Instagram, like I said, really impacted me. I sat down. It was a, I don't know, 10 or 15 minute, 12 minutes, something like that, long video. And so anybody out there, if you haven't listened to that, go listen to that. There's a lot of great information in that. But there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the western states, Washington, California, Arizona. Joe, if you wouldn't mind, kind of break down what is going on.
Yeah, it seems like, and I made the video. I'm not typically one to record myself. I want what the foundation's doing to be about it. So I try to not get my face on screen too much, but there was just so much going on all at once. It was hard to get the information out somehow. And so what we're seeing is kind of like an attack across all fronts of what I'm seeing presently. And it's in multiple states and multiple groups doing it. And there's kind of 3 tiers to these attacks. You got Washington, for instance. So Washington was interesting. They have a limited draw spring bear hunt, which is crazy in itself, because Washington has one of the most robust black bear populations in the lower 48.
Yeah.
So they have a limited quota spring bear hunt. Okay. So I think it was November. They had a commission meeting. And a lot of the hunters got tricked because we didn't understand, and we comment on a lot of these as part of the foundation. We look at the data and we talk to hunters. What do you think? And we kind of were under the impression that it was a meeting. In the meeting, they were going to talk about quotas and season dates and nothing else. Well, it ended up they had a tie vote to end the season.
Yeah. And
so because of their statutes, the tie made it no season because they couldn't approve it. So that got all blown up and everything went crazy. Fast forward to now, there was a petition that went around, and several people trying to get the voice of the commission to stop this, to at least take a look at it again, because we felt like we were railroaded a little bit as sportsmen. And there is obviously, in my mind, there's 2 anti-predator hunting people on that commission at minimum, and it was kind of a vendetta. And so anyways, they got they had a meeting the other day to vote whether or not to take a look at the spring season. They didn't vote on whether or not they're going to have a spring season, but we had several people sent in, I guess they were petitions, and a bunch of sportsmen signed them to the commission to get these another look at the spring season. So that passed. So now in like March or April, the commission in Washington will vote on whether or not to have a 2020 spring season.
But as of right now,
so,
that season's done though, right? I mean, that
as of right now, the 2022 spring season is not happening as of right now.
Okay. But they are revoting. Sorry, I don't mean to talk over you, but they are revoting. No, they will revote March or April to determine if it could possibly come back.
Yep. And so it was at the same time, one of the commissioners stepped down, and it's a mess right now. And they have 2 open positions on their commission.
What a cluster.
So it is just the whole thing to me is just kind of a messy situation. And and a lot of the commissioners that were speaking, what I felt was on behalf of sportsmen and on behalf of a bear hunt for the spring, were like, look, I think we made a mistake when we voted for this. We didn't do it right. We need to do this correctly. We need to have another vote. We need to go back and look at a season, because an end to a season should be done in a policy meeting and a policy deal by the commission, not a season setting meeting or and that's what we thought it was. So that's where we're at with Washington. Come March, we will need to galvanize everyone we can and submit comments on our desire to have a spring bear hunt in Washington.
So how do we do that? That's really what I want to dig into is, how do people get their voices heard? Where can they reach out to
and so
say stuff?
That's probably been a huge issue for sportsmen, because I think a lot of sportsmen have always had the passion and desire to want to comment on some of these issues.
Yeah.
And now with computers and social media and the digital age we live in, the information's there. That wasn't there before. Like, we know about the issue in California. We probably wouldn't have 10, 15 years ago. It would have just slipped under the rug.
Yeah.
So now we know about it, but a lot of people are like, well, I don't know how to write a letter. Like, I'm not good at writing letters, or I don't know what to say. And so it's scary for a lot of sportsmen. Thankfully, and that's what we saw. We used to write letters, and then we'd send them to all our members and say, we use, you can copy paste, do whatever, but send this in. Well, an organization came out just recently, howl.org, Howl for Wildlife.
Yeah.
They are making it so easy for people. All you do is go to their website, put in your email address, click on what you want to comment on, and it forwards it right to it. So whether or not you're sending an email to a commissioner, a state legislator, anything like that, it's already done. All you got to do is put your name in there. You can adjust the comment, or you can just hit submit. Done deal. It's a great page. You pop right on there. It's got all the actions. You could say, I want to comment on the Arizona predator hunting action. Click on it, put your name in, done.
I've just started looking into them and what they are. That it's howl.org. Is that the website? Is it .org or .net? Let me look it up.
Tell you for sure.
I was just gonna look it up too.
howlforwildlife.org.
howlforwildlife.org. Okay. I'll put that in the show notes so that people can find that. But that's a cool
really cool
organization.
Thing too with them is you can put in your email, so you receive texts and emails if there's new actions. So what I saw is the change.org petitions, you can go on there and sign them. I don't think anyone gets them. Right. I don't even know who sees it.
Right.
It just shows that there's support, but at least this is sending direct contact, direct emails to those people that are the decision makers.
That's huge. That's again, kind of the thing I try to get out of these podcasts is, we can talk about the information and what's going on, but then what do we do with that information? How do people act? Because you're right, as hunters and sportsmen, like we're so used to like, oh, we want our public comment heard, whatever format that's in. And so that's awesome. If we can go to howlforwildlife.org and be able to submit that comment. Again, this is for Washington. I mean, I guess it can be for anything and everything.
Yeah, so like California, they're all going to be on there. And like California is interesting because it's a different approach, right? This is a commission deal. California is a petition by the Humane Society, who is petitioning in, I believe they're the ones doing the petition in Arizona as well. So there you have a petition. That's another way. So they can submit a petition to the Game and Fish Commission there and say, this is what we think. We want you to take a look at this. And now the commission, because they got that petition, has to review it. Mm-hmm. And they can say, we think there's merit to this. We're going to look at it in full. And then we're going to have a meeting and a public comment period on whether or not we should accept the wording of this petition. So basically, essentially, like they'll get the petition in one meeting, they'll review it, they'll vote. Do we think this is something we should look at? No, throw it out. Okay, done. It's in the garbage. If they're like 3 to 4 people say, I want to dig deeper into this, I think we should accept it and have a full on like review of this and the content in the petition has merit, then it's in the next step. Every one of those steps, we get public comment.
Okay.
So for every time they review it, we have public comment. And that one was to end bear hunting.
Okay, I was going to say, for those that didn't watch the video, explain what that petition for California and Arizona looks like.
The bear hunting in California, they want to end it. Mm-hmm. Humane Society does. They said
all of it, right?
All of it. They used a couple of, basically what happened in California a couple of years ago is they ended hound hunting for bears.
Yeah.
And so they ended hound hunting for bears. And then 2 years ago, we had COVID. And you couldn't actually, oddly enough, in California, is what I was told, you couldn't go in the national forest in California during the COVID outbreak.
Because you might get COVID in the national forest.
Yeah. So the bear harvest numbers came way down in a couple years because they got rid of hound hunting. And then there was less hunters out there because of the COVID year. Well, what ends up happening, what most states in the West do is they use harvest data to predict population. Mm-hmm. Rather than bears are hard to count. So they use harvest data. And so what happens is they say, we take a tooth and we put it into an algorithm once we find the age and we say, okay, X amount of boars were harvested this year at this age group in this unit. Our algorithm and our model says if that happens, then the population is likely increasing. Or the population's, because we had a bunch of sows killed, the population. So it's an algorithmic method they use. Almost all Western states do it. Well, you need harvest to get good data. Well, when the harvest dropped off, the population dropped off because they're tied together. Uh-huh. You harvest more bears, you got more data, so they said, well, there's more bear hunters than ever, but the harvest has gone way down, so there must be less bears, which is completely ridiculous. So that was one of their sayings, and I said, well, no, you basically are saying that the population went down because there's less hunting.
Well, and go outdoors in California. There are bears everywhere. I mean, I guess I'm not speaking from my own personal experience, but I've got guys that go to California every year and go hunting. I've got guys that live in California and hunt California every single year, and they see bears all the time.
Tag sales. So they're, and I have some writing here. So the tag sales in California in 2020 were up. But only 50, and actually this is the odd thing about California, 54% of the bears in 2020 were killed by deer hunters or elk hunters, incidental. So they, the number of bears in California is staggering. There's so many bears in California.
Yeah.
And they only count bears in parts of the state that you can hunt bears. So they're saying ban bear hunting, but they want us to ban it based on the data that hunters provided through harvest. That only includes the huntable units.
So what's their management plan if they ban bear hunting in California? What's their management plan to be able to determine the numbers when you don't have that harvest data? It's impossible.
So that was their next ask in the petition was the state of California needs to update their black bear management plan, which is
that's right. You talked about that. It's already updated.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was like, their management plan's old, but the Humane Society said you have to use the most current science available.
Which
they're using the most current science. That's what all Western states do. There's no new science. There's not like a special way to count every bear on the landscape.
No.
Unless the state of California wants to fund millions of dollars to put people on the ground and do a study like we're doing in Wyoming on a much grander scale.
Mm-hmm.
How are they going to count every bear? They can't afford that. And they're not going to commit to that.
I was gonna say, the bear numbers, it'd be impossible. It'd be too expensive.
And they only can hunt in the fall there. And they also said, well, there's been drought and fire and everything. And we just don't know what's happening with it. We think you should stop. As you know, we'll get it back.
Yeah. Once it's gone, it's gone. You'll never see it back. It's just like, you lose these spring seasons in some of these states. Once you lose the spring season, you'll never get it back. You'll have a fall season. But yeah, if you lose, if this petition goes through and they end bear hunting, you'll never see it back.
Which has been a senator, I think. So now we have to go there and send them supporting bear. Hey, I know there's a petition out there, but these are the reasons you should not look at this bill or this petition or why you think bear hunting is important. And the same exact thing happened in Arizona, but it was on a larger scale. They're looking at bobcats and mountain lions.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to make sure we clarify that. So in Arizona, yeah, it's not just bears; it's several predator species.
Tooths and claws, yeah, they want them all. No hunting. I think trapping was in there. So they want to end it effectively, and that's a similar deal. It's a petition, so they'll look at the petition. The commission will. Thankfully, for sportsmen, if it goes to a commission, we have a lot more opportunity to get in front of commissioners because they have public commission meetings. They listen to people. They listen to sportsmen. We have a lot better chance of stopping something when it goes to a commission than we do if it's in
legislation,
a bill
in
Congress. So we have to get out and activate ourselves and get out there and do it. The trouble we're seeing on some of these commissions is we get more left-leaning governors. They're the ones that appoint the commissioners.
Yeah.
So they're appointing people that are anti-hunting onto these commissions. And that's a problem.
And that's what
right now.
You're seeing that in Arizona. Arizona's going more to that left-leaning. And so as they appoint those left-leaning commissioners, things like this, I mean, and that's the thing is this is a slippery slope. This is just the start. If this is
the beginning.
If they pass these petitions, look out. It's going to get ugly.
Well, because it shows them that, hey, we just won in 2 states. Let's go for 2 more next year. Let's go for 5 more. Oh, we got this killed in Arizona. Let's now go after pronghorn hunting in Arizona.
Exactly.
Or we want less elk hunting. You never know. God only knows what their plans are.
Yeah.
But it is to end because they don't believe in what we do. We have different ways of life, and so they don't like that.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about with the delisting of the grizzly bears. It's an uphill battle, and we know that. I mean, everybody out there knows that this is an uphill battle and something that we're going to be fighting probably our whole lives and our kids' lives and our grandkids' lives. But just like you just said, we actually have to get out there. We have to do something. We can't just sit and hope that it works out, because if you just sit around, it ain't going to work out. It's going to suck in the long run.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and before we go on to this, Colorado effectively trying to stop cougar hunting. And that is a bill being introduced to a committee right now. So if that passes, there will be no more cougar hunting in Colorado.
That's actually no, I did hear about that. Wow.
I don't have the
That's
numbers,
through legislation though, right? That's not a petition. That's a legislation.
That's the problem. They're doing that legislatively. I had the number. It was Senate bill. I don't remember the number, and I should have had that for you. I've been doing a lot of podcasts lately and my paperwork but that's all on howl.org or our website. The information on how to comment on that. So right now, 4 Western states, predator hunting is under attack.
See, that's
And
that slippery slope.
crazy.
Yeah.
And they will, and I feel like it's all coordinated. Like they're like, okay, let's do this in this state, this in this state. They're going to be paying attention to that. So I think they're underestimating sportsmen. And I think we're at a better point now this year than we were 5 years ago to fight these fights, and we keep getting better.
Mm-hmm.
We're learning, right?
Yeah.
We have to learn from them. They're very organized, they're very calculated, and we have to be the same way if we're going to win.
Yep.
You know, we can't just be a loose group of guys that say, well, I love bear hunting, but if they're going to ban baiting, I don't like baiting, so I don't care.
Yeah.
No, they're going to ban some form of hunting, so whether you like it or not, you better be commenting.
When you lose baiting, and then you lose dogs, and then you lose spot and stock completely all in general, and then you lose bear hunting and mountain lion hunting and everything else. That's why I look at Colorado, and that makes me nervous that you bring that up about that being legislative, because it's just like the wolves. You know, they are very calculated in what they do. They knew exactly when to present that bill to introduce wolves back into Colorado, and they knew the impact that it would have, but they knew when they could get it passed. And so they introduced it, they got it passed, and now they're like, okay, we did this once. We've kind of got this whole thing figured out. Let's see what we can do with ending some of these hunts and mountain lion hunts, you know, change coyote hunting. You know, I see a lot of different things happening in Colorado. And
well, you look at California banned it so long ago.
Yeah.
They still can't mountain lion hunt in that state.
And
so
mountain lions are dragging kids out of parks too.
I mean, they're just like going into schoolyards.
Yeah,
I will say it's not all bad. You look at what Montana did last year, and they got a hound chase season for bears now.
Yeah.
I never thought in a million years that state would do that. Never. And they got her through, good or bad. I mean, but it was a win for a sportsman group, and we support hound hunting. Like, I love chasing cats.
Yeah.
I've never done bears yet. I want to go so bad, but
so fun.
They got it done. And, you know, so that's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, where it's like, we're continually fighting. We oftentimes forget to look for opportunity, you know, cause we're so defensive.
Yeah. And reactionary. We're so reactionary to things that are going on. Which is, you know, I mean, it's okay because we're passionate, and it's good to be passionate. It's good to react to some of these things that are happening, but you've also got to look at, like you say, look for opportunity. Look where, okay, but can we add this in this state? Can we change this in this state? That's hard to do because we already talked about it. Once you lose it, it's hard to get things back or change things for the better for us.
It's funny what has changed. And I was talking to a friend, his name's on Instagram, Ryan Off the Grid, and he's a photographer, and he's that and a great guy. And we were talking on Instagram the other day, and I said, we were just talking about all that's going on and how much, you know, it's just overwhelming sometimes. And he's like, you know, I often think I wish I lived back when our grandparents did, you know, and hunting was different. And you never heard about this stuff going on. People stayed in their lane, right? You can hunt. I don't care. Do whatever. I said, now with the digital age, everything's happening so fast, and now we're learning. And I said, it would be nice to go back and never have to worry about, I'm never going to lose my bear hunting rights. And he goes, but I thought, and he made a good point. He goes, we're all here now for this reason, because we will fight. And we have to be just like that. It's like I said, we're all here for a reason now, and it's up to us. And if we don't do something about it, then shame on us. If we go down fighting and lose everything you have, at least we went down fighting. Exactly.
You know, I use that viewpoint in pretty much my entire life. I'm a Christian based person, and I feel like we're put on this earth at a certain time in a certain place for a certain reason. And I think you're absolutely right, because if it was swapped, our granddads probably wouldn't be fighting it like we are now. They'd be like, whatever. I got to go work in the mine.
Different, you know, different priorities. Yeah, like I got to work.
Yeah.
And that's what's affecting a lot of sportsmen too. We're a blue collar group.
Yeah.
You know, most of us are 9 to 5 or working 12-hour shifts or out in an oil field, or, you know, I work crazy hours. It's like, we don't have a lot of time, you know, but that's where, like, doing what you're doing or the foundation that we have is like, okay, I have to lean on these guys, and they'll help me because I don't have time to research this. And that's like what you're doing is instrumental, just talking about it.
Yep. Yeah. We have to make people aware, and it really truly is a volume thing. I mean, we want everybody to have the same passions, you know, try to help people understand this, but it really truly is a volume. The more people that we can get on board, whether it be through podcasts, whether it be through the foundation or whatever the case may be, the more people we can get on board with this initiative and this change and whatever you want to call this thing, the more impact we can make. So
it's true. We're losing privileges and rights as Americans every day. And like, maybe this is what's important. You got to find something that's important to you that you're passionate about and fight for it. And maybe it is bear hunting, maybe it is deer hunting, but maybe there's not a group out there that you know of and you want to start one, but everything you do is better than sitting on your butt and waiting for the attack. Like, be proactive.
Yep, I could not agree with you more. That's a great way to kind of wrap things up here. I don't want to steal your whole evening here, but I did want to get this out because, like I said, I listened to your video, and when you started talking about the impacts that this can make on these different states, and I don't hunt in Washington or California. I do hunt in Arizona, but I do want to get into bear hunting. I do want to get more into it, and I also have really starting to fall in love with nonprofit organizations, and so I see what you guys are trying to do and the impact you're trying to make, and so I was like, we've got to talk more about this. And so if people want to get involved with you guys as the Western Bear Foundation, and be involved, we talked about this for the last little bit, get involved, don't sit on your butt. How do people get involved with you guys to like directly impact Western bears?
Yeah, for me, the best way to do it for us is you can sign up for a membership on our website, or quite simply, you can just send us an email and say, hey, keep me in the loop of what's going on. Like on our website, we have my phone number is the number. We don't have an office. And the email address comes right to me. And so I talk to so many people throughout the year and just kind of try and keep them posted and interact and try and create that network of bear hunters. And then, social media is big for us. Thankfully, I think we're as big as we are because of social media. As bad as it can be, sometimes it can be really good.
Yeah.
So on Facebook and Instagram, we have accounts there. So, Instagram and Facebook, you can look for us. And that's where most of our stuff goes. We have an awesome website. I don't update it as much as I should, but everything is on there too. Any important stuff. There's a link to How for Wildlife right on the front page of our website. There's some videos explaining what we are, who we are, what we do, and kind of what our goals and beliefs are. So probably the easiest way.
Okay, cool. Well, awesome. Well, again, everybody listening, a lot of crap going on right now in these other states, but like Joe said, this could just be the start, though. This could start to trickle into other states. It could be in your home state, and so we've got to be involved in this, even if it's not your home state. We've got to squash these things before they get out of hand. So get involved, reach out to these guys. Excuse me, help in any way that you possibly can. So. Well, Joe, I'll let you back to the family. And
we have to have a part 2 this spring, so just keep that on your radar.
Let's do part 2. Well, actually, we need to do a part 2 and, talk about the results of these petitions and also
that would be good.
What's going on and what happens with Washington in March or April. So let's definitely do that.
I feel like we might have more to talk about coming because I feel like we're not done. So it would be good to do another little piece to update everyone in March or April.
Let's do it. Let's just put it on the calendar and plan it, and let's talk a little bit more. I'll shoot you my number in our chat, and let's talk a little bit more about doing a bear hunt and doing a podcast live.
Cool. I would love it.
So cool, man.
Awesome, buddy.
Hey, man, I appreciate you taking the time. Good luck to you. Be good. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right. See you, brother.
See ya.
Bye.